Hi everyone, good evening. Today I'm going to be talking about one thing that you can do as a creative professional to improve your taste. Um so before I start or to start, what is taste, right? There are different definitions, but one of my favorite ways of describing taste is that it is your ability as a person or a professional to judge what is good or bad in your domain, or your ability to set a benchmark for quality or for excellence, right? And for me, I feel like, okay, for me, I believe that the most important thing for you that you need as a creative to build taste is observation, right? You need to learn to observe because you cannot give what you don't have. And let me explain. Let's say you're a designer or you're a musician or you're a craftsman, you're a carpenter. You can't be a master carpenter if you don't know what quality furniture looks like. You would not be a master musician if you don't know what great music sounds like. You're not going to be a great designer, whether you're a product designer, you're a graphic designer, you're an illustrator. You're not going to be great at what you do if you don't know what greatness looks like in your domain, right? So the first and the most important skill or the most important attribute you need as a professional is to learn to observe things, the artifacts or the things that are high quality in your domain, or the practices of the people who are masters in your domain. Like someone that is great, why are they great? What do they do to be great? This design that looks great, why is it great? So I'm going to mention three things that you're going to do in terms of how you're going to observe, right? Like, yeah, I'm saying observation, but what do you do? Why should you observe? So, the first thing is that you're going to observe to recognize patterns, right? Say you're listening to a music and you're a rapper, you want to listen to the beats, what are the bars, how many words is the person rapping in each bar, what is the rhyme, what is the rhythm, right? If you're looking at a piece of design, what are the colors? What's the font, or what's the typography? How are the what's the composition like? How are the elements arranged, right? What is being communicated? How is it being communicated? How does the design make you feel, right? Um, what is the texture of the design? Like, is it gradient? Does it have a grunge background? How does it make you feel? Right. For example, if I write happy birthday in Comic Sans with rainbow colors, it's fun, right? But if I write it in red with like all those fonts that look like horror movie colors, and I put a knife beside it and I say happy birthday, that's really scary. Like it should sound like, it should look like a threat. And that is different in the same thing being visually communicated, right? So coming back to taste, you need to look at, observe good quality things in your domain, whether it's music, whether it's fashion, whatever it is you're a creative in, and ask yourself what makes it good, right? So even if you don't work in design, let's say you're an architect, well, adjacent to design, let's say you are a fund manager, or you are an investment banker. You look at deals, look at great deals that have generated returns for the key parties. Like, what makes this deal great? What were the key things considered? And also consider things that are outliers, because there are sometimes that a great work is great because it was part of what was trending at the time, right? And there are great work that are timeless, right? So one, you learn to recognize, observe those quality artifacts or objects or things in your domain, or great works that have been done. Look for the patterns that make it great, right? So you're looking at an artwork, learn to criticize things, learn to ask yourself, why is this beautiful? You're looking at a beautiful face, a person, even like physical people. Why is this person beautiful? Is it the symmetry of the face? Is it the shape of the nose? All of that, right? Critique beauty in everything. Look at your phone. Why do I like this phone? Is it the rounded corners? Is it the sharp corners? Is it the Snapdragon chip in it? So critically can find out all the reasons that you choose to say that this is good, right? And even when you look at bad work, why is this bad? Learn to articulate um why you think is bad, right? And that goes to my second point: expand your vocabulary on that particular domain, right? So if you're a designer, expand your glossary of words or your vocabulary. Learn how to describe designs. Okay, when it comes to color, it's not just a color, right? Aside from saying this is red or blue, there are different hues. There's turquoise and all those shades, all those hues between the primary colors, right? And then you learn the different things you use to describe a color. Is it the hue? Is it the saturation? And all of that, right? When it comes to fonts, you learn the language used to describe text, right? Whether it's kerning, leading, whether it's the alignment and all of that, right? When you're looking at spacing, right, or looking at alignment, is it left aligned? Is it right aligned? Right? Look at different kinds of grids. If it's in product design, they think of 4 point grid, 8 point grids, 16 point grids, things like that. So understand the vocabulary of the domain you're operating in. Because one is you're training your mind to articulate the ingredients that make up that great design or the great artifact, or whether it's music or piece of cloth, if you're in fashion, or a car, if you're a car designer, or a deal, or whatever that you're working on as a professional, right? The next is, yeah, I think I mentioned that in passing, but articulate it, learn to describe in detail, right? So, like I said, first you observe, second you expand your vocabulary, and then use that vocabulary to describe in detail, break down that great work, in some ways deconstruct it, right? So, if I like this design, if I like this piece of work, why is it great? Right? If I and not just study great things within your domain, also look at greatness outside of your domain. Like, for example, I love F1, and one of the things I did last year was to study the grades, look at Lewis Hamilton, look at Michael Schumacher, look at Max Verstappen, and ask myself, why are these guys exceptional in their sport? Like, if you look at the stats, these guys are so good that they beat all the drivers that have been competing with them within the same time. Their stats are so exceptional. And you see things around, okay, they spend a lot of time practicing. For Lewis Hamilton, one of his tricks was his dad taught him how to brake late. So he's able to carry a lot of speed into turns and come out of it and end up having fastest laps in most of the races he's in, because he knows how to navigate corners at high speed, right? Max Verstappen is fearless, and reps and reps his own is one of his secrets, is that he's first a sim racer before being a Formula One racer. But bringing him back to taste, if I spend more time in the world of F1. The key thing I'm trying to pull out here is, one is obsession with the crafts. When you look at these people, you observe people outside your domain, you see that they are obsessed, because it takes a lot of obsession to observe the details required to excel in that craft. Like, you think about um, you learn about Michael Jordan, like he was so obsessed with winning that he forced his teammates to train as hard as he does, because of course it's teamwork, right? And one person can win a championship, right? Other things I'm going to mention, three other things that I'm going to mention, like when you've observed, when you've expanded your vocabulary and when you've been able to articulate these things, how do you begin to apply it to your work? All right. So one is, take inventory. So when you describe these things, like begin to build a repository in your mind, like a bank of good work. Train your mind. One of the ways to improve your tastes is to feed your mind. Like, I remember when I was working as an ad director in the ad agency, I would spend hours every morning before I start to work looking at ads on Pinterest. Like, I'll just load different ads for different brands similar to the brands I'm working with at the time, and I will study award-winning ads. I will spend hours on ads of the world, because I'm trying to feed my mind with good ideas, right? And basically what I'm doing is I'm enabling my brain, I'm feeding my brain with information that when I'm working and I'm faced with problems, I can connect dots and pull ideas from things I've exposed myself to solve new problems I'm facing in my work day. Right. So another aspect of it is, after taking inventory of, okay, these are the cool things that I'm looking at, break it down. Like, why does this work? Right? Like, why is this beautiful? why is it working in this context, right? Why does this font look good? Why do people hate Comic Sans, for example, right? Why do people now love to hate on Poppins? Like these are like kind of questions you ask yourself as a designer and try to find your own answers to it. Because trust me, if you choose to, you can make good designs with Comic Sans or Poppins or Intel or any of these fonts that are so popular. That I don't like. I'm not in any way saying that Comic Sans is the same bucket as Poppins and Inter, but you know what I mean. And when you analyze it, when you're analyzing the work, try to understand what is the history, right? What is the history behind it? What's the history behind this kind of fonts? What's the history behind this kind of colors? Is there any meaning or association with it? Like if I'm trying to use a texture to represent something, is there a reason why that texture is relevant to the context? Right. Try to understand the history, try to understand the intention of the original creators of that work, and also try to understand what was the impact, right? Because it's interesting, for example, when you look at art, there's certain artworks that were unpopular in their own time, but now command a lot of value, right? So you need to also look at the art in terms of what makes this work timeless. Like look at the Mona Lisa, like one of the beautiful things about it that blew people away was the advanced techniques that Leonardo da Vinci used in painting and the way he mixed the pigments, he used the paints, the way he manipulated lights and shadows to even create visual illusions in the painting, right? So these are some things you can pull from and get insight to apply in your own work. For example, as a designer, right? For example, so the other day I was listening to one of the co-founders of Fay, an app and a finance platform, and he was talking about how he gained inspiration, some of his inspiration he used in designing from, you know, from looking at Caravaggio, the artist's work. I'm not sure if that's the right pronunciation. Well, do forgive me. At Caravaggio's work and the way he manipulated lights and shadows and highlights, right, and reflections. And in his UI, he applied this to the way buttons look. Like there was a bit of new skeuomorphism in the sense that certain features look realistic in the interface, and he took inspiration from that, from real artwork and also from architecture, just looking at real world objects, looking at how light is cast upon objects and how shadows how objects cast shadows and how all of this plays together, to make the UI he's designing look grounded and make it look more a bit more realistic, right? And I think the last thing I would say is, when you have as you're building your taste, practice using that taste to create, right? Try to replicate some of the things you see. There's a reason why historically the way artists are trained is by replicating existing arts before they get to the point where they start creating unique arts with the principles they've learned, right? So start applying some of those things you've learned in your work. um Apply, but something to note is, for everyone that is new to their domain, it's common to feel imposter syndrome, especially as your taste is growing. And the reason is basically because there's a gap between your taste and your craft, which I'm going to talk about in another video. There's a gap between your tastes and your current ability, right? And because you've exposed yourself to so much good work, your benchmark is so high, but you don't have enough skill to reach that benchmark here. What I would say is just continue, keep practicing, keep going at it, right? And over time your crafts would climb. And the ideal thing is that your craft should never meet your taste. Like your taste should always be increasing, even as you're improving your craft, right? But the goal is like continual improvement, continuous growth. Yeah, so I'm going to end here for today, but I hope I hope you learned something today. If you have more thoughts on tastes, things you think I should have mentioned I didn't, please drop it in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe. See you in the next video.